Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I hope you and your family are staying indoors and safe and everyone is healthy. I wanted to bring you, since we can't join together in shul again this week, a little message from the Torah portion. This Torah portion, actually it's two, Tazria and Metzora, that are sometimes read separately. This year read together. Metzora was actually my bar mitzvah parsha just a few years ago, and they deal with a particular type of disease, affliction, a plague of sorts that was happening in the biblical times, and that was the affliction of tzara'at, or commonly referred to as leprosy, but probably not exactly leprosy because it seemed to also have a spiritual component as well. So it was dealt with spiritually by the Kohen, by the priests, but also was dealt with medically in a lot of the same ways that we use today to prevent disease, including seclusion and washing and being vigilant about protecting oneself who's sick and also protecting the community from a public health perspective. And here in the Torah portion at the beginning of Parashat Metzora, it says that somebody who is suspected of maybe having this disease, v'huva el ha-kohen, is brought to the Kohen to diagnose. So this is the spiritual component, but the priest, not the medical doctor, is the one who diagnoses this disease. The commentators say v'huva el ha-kohen, he's brought to the priest, actually means that the priest goes to him, that the priest is brought to him, because he should be in seclusion and in isolation, as the rest of the parsha explains. And the priest is the one who diagnoses this affliction. So in that way, it's also a spiritual disease, and the rabbis discuss that, that there's maybe a connection between this plague of tzara'at and speaking lashon hara, or speaking evil talk, because the first two instances that we know of in the Torah of tzara'at, of Moses and Miriam, become in the context of what seems like after they've been committed the transgression of slander. So who knows? But and we always have people who say, well, this plague was brought on because of our bad behavior, and so on and so forth. But we also know that people suffer unnecessarily and seemingly inexplicably. So that's why this Torah portion is particularly hard for us to digest. In fact, the commentators say, well, the proof that this is a spiritual disease is because it's diagnosed by the Kohen, by the priest. And in the absence of the priesthood and the temple and all of the temple ritual, we no longer have priests. We no longer have people who can diagnose this spiritual disease. And we don't know when God is afflicting us personally and us collectively, if it's punishment for something in particular, or just suffering that happens in the world. And we never know which is which. And you have many extremist religious leaders who will say that it's because of our evil transgressions that God is afflicting us, or that even that the suffering is welcome, is good because we deserve it, and it's we should accept that sort of affliction on ourselves. But neither of these really strike us as a kosher type of response, but rather that we can't tell why, or we have no idea why bad things happen in the world. Maybe it's divine punishment, maybe it's just the way of the world, and we have to, either way, we don't deal with it by accepting our lot as staying at home, but rather we find ways that we can reach out and that we can continue to live, right? But always in a healthy and safe way, as the Torah describes, by socially distancing, right? By keeping our hands clean, by keeping our bodies clean, by making sure that we are completely quarantined for a period of time before we rejoin the community, and so on and so forth. And these are examples of medical advice that was followed in the days of the Torah that are still pertinent. And the modern medical professionals are saying the same thing. So are we supposed to be happy with our suffering? Are we supposed to say, well, it's because of our evil ways that we're enduring such a difficult time right now? I don't think so. I don't think that's helpful. I think what is helpful is to make sure that we are protecting ourselves, that we're protecting each other, and that we're taking care of as many people as we possibly can during this time. And I think that is the Jewish way. That is the way that of the parasha. And ultimately, when the person who's afflicted with tzara'at, with this leprosy, rejoins the community, there is so much rejoicing because he is not only physically clear, but also spiritually clear. And my prayer for us is that we're soon able to rejoin together in our synagogue and gather and praise God and be there for each other in person as we are there for each other spiritually and emotionally right now. I want to wish you and your families a Shabbat Shalom Mevarach. May you have a peaceful and restful and happy Shabbat.